Are you tired of hearing the same old recycled inspirational quotes that just don't hit the mark anymore? You've probably heard them 1,000 times. Think positive, stay strong, the best is yet to come. But deep down, do they actually help you push through those tough moments, or do they just sound like empty words? If you're looking for something that cuts through the noise and truly sparks change, you're in the right place. In this video, we're diving into 10 powerful quotes that aren't just feel-good fluff. They're designed to make you think, challenge your mindset, and push you toward real growth. But here's the twist. These aren't the typical sugar-coated mantras. Some of these will make you uncomfortable, but that discomfort, it's exactly what you need to level up. Stick around, because I'm about to show you how these quotes can be a game changer. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Number 1. Embrace the dark side. You've been told to think positive, right? To look on the bright side, to find the silver lining in every cloud. But what if I told you that the key to unlocking real positivity is actually embracing the dark side? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? You might be wondering, wait, are you telling me to dwell on the negative? No, trust me on this. What I'm saying is far more powerful. Stick with me for a minute, and let's explore something that might just flip the script on how you've been approaching life. We've all been there, feeling overwhelmed by stress, anger, frustration, or fear. It's like those emotions are sneaky little shadows that seem to follow you everywhere. No matter how much you try to push them away or force yourself to smile, they linger. The truth is, we've been conditioned to reject the negative emotions, believing they're something to be ashamed of or avoided at all costs. But here's the twist. When you stop running from these feelings, when you give them a moment of your attention, they lose their grip on you. I know, this might sound a little counterintuitive. I mean, isn't positivity about banishing all those negative emotions? Not quite. Imagine you're feeling down or upset. You try to ignore it, push it away, or pretend it doesn't exist. What happens? It gets louder, right? The more you try to shove it into a corner, the bigger it gets. But what if you actually gave it space? What if you allowed yourself to sit with those uncomfortable emotions for a moment, acknowledge them without judgment? It's like walking into a dark room with your eyes wide open, instead of stumbling around in the dark, terrified of what might be lurking. Let me tell you about a time I tried this myself. I was in a situation with a close friend, one of those classic friendship rifts where things had been building up for a while, but neither of us was willing to confront it. The tension was there, the anger was there, but neither of us wanted to be the first to address it. And honestly, I was scared to have the conversation. The fear of ruining everything, of opening a can of worms, was paralyzing. But instead of pretending everything was fine, I took a deep breath and embraced the dark side, my fear, my anxiety, my frustration. I sat with those feelings for a moment, fully aware of them, then reached out to her. The conversation wasn't easy, but by facing my own emotions instead of avoiding them, I was able to communicate more clearly. And to my surprise, it actually brought us closer. I gave myself permission to feel everything, and in doing so, I was able to bring clarity, understanding, and even healing to a difficult situation. Here's the thing. Embracing your dark side is not about staying there. It's not about wallowing in negativity. It's about being real with yourself, owning all of your emotions, and recognizing that they don't define you. By embracing your fears, doubts, and insecurities, you reclaim your power. You give yourself the freedom to move beyond them. It's about being so emotionally honest with yourself that you unlock a deeper form of strength and resilience. You stop pretending everything is perfect, and in doing so, you start feeling more peaceful, grounded, and yes, positive. This is not about holding on to negativity. It's about learning to let it pass through you, like clouds passing through the sky. The next time you feel something dark creeping in, don't run from it. Invite it in. Let it sit with you for a moment. Examine it, feel it, then let it go. Because by embracing it, you not only diffuse its power, but you also open up space for something much brighter to take its place. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are yours to reclaim by facing those shadows and turning them into fuel for your growth. Number 2. Gratitude guerrilla warfare. What if I told you the secret to transforming your mood and mindset doesn't lie in waiting for the perfect moment, but in actively seeking out the most irritating, frustrating parts of your day and being grateful for them? Sounds strange, right? You might be thinking, gratitude for the worst parts of my day. Is that even possible? Trust me, it's not just possible, it's a game changer. Welcome to Gratitude Guerrilla Warfare, where you turn your daily annoyances into opportunities for growth and positivity. Now, I know you've been there. You're stuck in traffic, or you've had a terrible meeting, or maybe you're dealing with a difficult person. Again, the last thing you want to do is find gratitude in those moments. You're ready to vent, to blame, to just be frustrated because, hey, isn't that what's supposed to happen when life throws you a curveball? We all know the type. Those moments when it feels like the universe is testing your patience just a little too much. But here's the catch. What if you could flip the script in those exact moments? What if, instead of spiraling into a pit of frustration, you could take a step back and say, okay, let's find something to be grateful for here. Yes, it sounds like a stretch, but stick with me. The trick here is simple. When life hands you a mess, instead of getting tangled in the negativity, you practice what I like to call gratitude guerrilla warfare. That means actively hunting for something, anything to be thankful for in those irritating situations. Now, hear me out. I'm not talking about forcing yourself to be upbeat or pretending things are perfect. What I'm suggesting is finding a piece of light in the chaos. Maybe it's the fact that the traffic gives you a few extra minutes to listen to your favorite podcast, or that the awkward conversation with your colleague helped you realize something you didn't know about yourself. In other words, it's less about the situation and more about how you choose to view it. Let me give you a real-life example from my own experience. I was once stuck at an airport for hours due to a delayed flight. Everyone around me was visibly frustrated, complaining about everything from the food to the airline's lack of communication. I could feel the irritation building in my chest, and for a second I thought, why does this always happen to me? But instead of feeding into that frustration, I decided to turn it into a moment of gratitude guerrilla warfare. I found myself appreciating the time to just sit and do nothing. I pulled out my notebook, jotted down a few thoughts, and even got some writing done. That unexpected delay turned into a rare opportunity for uninterrupted focus, and by the time the flight was finally called, I was actually feeling a little grateful for the extra time. Here's the deeper power behind this strategy. When you take the time to find gratitude in life's challenges, you're not just making the best of a bad situation, you're training your brain to see the potential in every moment. You're rewiring your mind to focus on solutions instead of problems, and that's an incredibly empowering skill to develop. It shifts you from being a passive recipient of life's challenges to an active participant who is in control of their own emotional landscape. No more waiting for external circumstances to dictate how you feel. You become the one who chooses to create peace, regardless of what's going on around you. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. It's about saying, yes, things aren't perfect right now, but I'm going to find something in this moment to appreciate anyway. And guess what? Every time you do this, it becomes easier. You'll start noticing the little victories, those quiet, hidden moments of grace that were always there, waiting for you to find them. You'll realize that you don't need everything to be ideal to feel grateful. So, The next time life throws a curveball your way, don't just sit there fuming. Grab that moment by the horns and wage a little gratitude guerrilla warfare. Find your gratitude in the middle of the mess. It's not just about getting through the tough times, it's about transforming them. And when you do, you'll discover something powerful. Your peace, your joy, and your strength are yours to create, no matter what. Number 3. Delete your social media happiness filter. What if I told you that the constant scroll through your social media feed might actually be robbing you of your happiness? Sounds dramatic, right? But hear me out. You might be thinking, wait, isn't social media just for fun? Doesn't it help me stay connected? Sure, it does have its perks, but the truth is, it can also be a happiness killer, especially when you're constantly comparing your life to others. So, what if the secret to real joy is as simple as deleting your social media happiness filter? Let's dive into this idea and see how it could actually make you feel more alive, more present, and way less stressed. You know the type, the influencer who's always posting perfect selfies, the couple that's perpetually on an exotic vacation, or that friend who seems to have their life figured out. We've all seen it, and let's be real, sometimes it feels like everyone else has it together while you're just trying to keep it all from falling apart. We've all been there, scrolling through feeds and thinking, wow, they're doing so much better than me. What am I doing wrong? But here's the thing. Social media is the ultimate highlight reel. It's the polished version of reality, and when we compare ourselves to that, we end up feeling less than. And trust me, it's not just you. We all fall into the trap. So, here's the unconventional idea. Delete your social media happiness filter. What does that mean? Well, stop curating your life to match the version of success and happiness you see online. Instead, start embracing the reality of your own life, the messy, imperfect, beautiful reality. The next time you find yourself comparing your behind the scenes to someone's carefully crafted highlight reel, remember, that's not real life. It's a performance. The happiness you're chasing is probably the same happiness they're chasing, only they've learned how to sell the illusion of it. And let's be real, we're all buying into it, whether we like to admit it or not. I'll share a personal story with you. A few months ago, I was stuck in a spiral, comparing my career to others. It felt like everyone around me was climbing the ladder, getting the promotions, getting their big breaks. Meanwhile, I was feeling like I was treading water. Every time I checked my social media, it felt like a punch to the gut. The posts, the success stories, every one of them felt like proof that I was falling behind. So I decided to delete the happiness filter. Instead of focusing on what everyone else was doing, I took a step back and focused on what was happening in my own life. I gave myself credit for the small wins, the progress I was making, the relationships I was nurturing, and the simple joys of life that I had been overlooking because I was so focused on other people's successes. And guess what? Once I shifted my perspective, I felt way more fulfilled, more connected to my own journey. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't Instagram perfect, but it was real, and that made all the difference. Here's the deal. Deleting your social media happiness filter isn't about rejecting social media altogether, though that could be a healthy move too. It's about reclaiming your own joy and recognizing that what you see online isn't the whole picture. Social media is a tool, not a measure of your worth. The more you step away from that comparison trap, the more you'll notice the beauty in your own life, imperfections and all. It's about creating space for your own success, your own happiness, and your own peace, without needing to look to others for validation. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Stop overexposing yourself to a reality that isn't yours and start living yours authentically and fully. You don't need to chase someone else's version of happiness. Your happiness is already within you, just waiting to be recognized. The next time you catch yourself scrolling and feeling like you don't measure up, remember, their life isn't your life, and your life is more than enough. So go ahead, delete that happiness filter, reclaim your peace. Your life, your success, and your joy are enough, just as they are. Number 4. Feel your failures. What if I told you the secret to overcoming failure isn't about getting back up immediately? No, it's about sitting with it. Yes, you heard me right, feeling your failures. Now, I know this might sound counterintuitive. You've probably been told 100 times to pick yourself up and move on whenever things go wrong. But trust me, there's power in doing the exact opposite. I'm not saying you should wallow in your failure, but what if, instead of rushing past it, you actually took the time to truly feel it? What if, instead of running from the discomfort, you embraced it for a moment? You know the type, the one who acts like everything's fine, who hides their failures behind a smile or a bounce-back mentality. We've all been there, right? You try to power through, ignoring the sinking feeling in your chest, because you've been taught that failure is something you should hide or push aside. But here's the catch. That's where the real growth happens. We've all been told to never let failure define us. But what if failure could actually refine us? What if we could use it as a tool for personal growth instead of a shameful scar to hide? Here's the strategy. Feel your failures. Not to drown in them, but to understand them. When you feel the disappointment, the frustration, the anger, sit with those feelings. Don't rush to fix them or push them down. Ask yourself, what went wrong? What could I have done differently? What can I learn from this? This might sound simple, but most of us are so eager to avoid discomfort that we never get the chance to truly process the lessons embedded in failure. When you let yourself feel the full weight of failure, you allow yourself to learn and grow in ways that bypassing it never could. Let me give you a personal example. A while ago, I was working on a big project, something I poured my heart into. When it fell apart, I was devastated. I wanted to shut down, pretend it didn't matter, and move on to the next thing. But I knew I had to deal with it. So instead of ignoring it, I sat with my failure. I spent days feeling frustrated, questioning myself, and even doubting my abilities. It was uncomfortable. But when I allowed myself to fully experience that failure, to feel the pain and disappointment, I realized something important. I hadn't been as thorough as I thought. There were mistakes I'd overlooked, warning signs I ignored, and in feeling that failure, I gained insight that led to a stronger, better approach the next time. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. We often think we need to be tough and resilient, but resilience isn't about pretending you didn't fall. It's about acknowledging the fall, feeling it, and then using that experience to get back up stronger. It's okay to feel the sting of failure. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And when you let yourself process those feelings, you'll find that your failures no longer control you. They empower you. You learn more from failure than you ever will from success, and it gives you the emotional strength to face your next challenge with clarity and confidence. So the next time you fail, don't run from it. Don't push it aside in favor of pretending everything's okay. Feel it. Learn from it. Let it teach you. Your failures don't define you, but how you handle them does. And that is the real key to growth. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are all within reach, waiting for you to embrace the lessons and the power that only failure can offer. Number 5. Master the art of saying no. What if I told you that one of the most powerful things you can do for your mental health, your time, and your happiness is actually saying no? Yep, saying no, not yes to everything that comes your way. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, but isn't saying yes the way to be nice? to be liked, to be seen as helpful. Yes, I get it. We've all been there, feeling the pressure to say yes because we want to please others or fear disappointing them. But trust me, there's a whole different kind of power in mastering the art of saying no. And I promise, it's not as scary as it sounds. You know the type, the one who says yes to every work request, every friend asking for a favor, every event they're invited to, and before they know it, they've overcommitted themselves to the point of burnout. We've all been there, right? You get to a point where you're so stretched thin, doing things for everyone else, that you're left with zero time or energy for yourself. It feels like you're constantly running on empty, and yet you're still saying yes, because you're afraid of letting people down. But here's the thing, by saying yes to everyone else, you're saying no to your own needs, your own boundaries, and your own well-being. And let's be real, it's impossible to pour from an empty cup. So here's the strategy. Master the art of saying no. And I'm not talking about being rude or dismissive. It's about setting healthy boundaries and prioritizing what truly matters to you. When you say no to something that drains you or doesn't align with your values, you're saying yes to your own peace, your own focus, and your own happiness. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are precious, and just because someone else wants something from you doesn't mean you owe them an automatic yes. I'll tell you from experience, learning to say no has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. There was a time I was the yes person, the one everyone relied on because I couldn't say no. I would agree to work late, attend events I didn't really care about, and take on responsibilities that weren't mine to take on. But one day, I hit a wall. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and honestly, just not happy. That's when I realized I needed to start saying no. The first few times it felt weird. It felt uncomfortable, but the more I practiced it, the more I realized that saying no wasn't a rejection of the person. It was a way to honor myself. I started saying no to things that didn't serve me, and surprisingly, people respected me more for it. Not only did my stress level decrease, but I also had more time for the things that actually mattered. Time for my passions, time for my family, and most importantly, time for me. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Saying no isn't selfish, it's an act of self-respect. It's about honoring your own needs, protecting your energy, and recognizing that your time is valuable. You don't have to explain yourself or feel guilty when you say no. You're not a bad person for putting yourself first. In fact, by mastering the art of saying no, you're showing the world that you know your worth and that you're not afraid to guard your boundaries. So, the next time someone asks you for a favor or invites you to something that doesn't align with your priorities, don't be afraid to say no. Trust me, it gets easier with practice. And the more you practice, the more you'll realize that saying no is actually one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are yours to protect. Never forget that. And remember, when you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to a life that truly reflects your needs and desires. Number 6. Toxic positivity. Detox. What if I told you that sometimes the constant push for positivity can actually be holding you back? Yeah, I know. Sounds a little counterintuitive, right? We're always told to look on the bright side, just think positive, or everything happens for a reason. But here's the truth. Sometimes all that toxic positivity is just a way to avoid dealing with the tough stuff. Now, you might be thinking, but doesn't being positive make everything better? Trust me, I get it. We've all been there, trying to keep a smile plastered on our face when deep down we're exhausted, frustrated, or just not okay. But here's the thing. True healing and growth come from allowing yourself to feel all of it, not just the sunshine moments. So, what if we could actually embrace the hard stuff without feeling guilty for it? What if we could detox from that toxic positivity? You know the type, the ones who throw around phrases like good vibes only or everything happens for a reason. Whenever you're feeling down, we've all heard it, or worse, been on the receiving end of it. It's like someone is telling you to skip over your pain, to sweep it under the rug, and just slap a happy face on it. And don't get me wrong, I love optimism as much as the next person, but the problem with this forced positivity is that it can make you feel like something's wrong with you if you don't just get over it. So you keep pushing through, ignoring your emotions, and pretending like everything's fine when it's really not. Sound familiar? Here's the strategy: a toxic positivity detox. It's about giving yourself permission to feel your feelings, no matter how messy or uncomfortable they may be. It's about accepting that life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and that's perfectly okay. When you stop forcing yourself to be happy all the time, you open the door to real healing. It's not about wallowing in negativity or using your struggles as an excuse to avoid growth, but it is about being honest with yourself, acknowledging that sometimes life sucks, and that's completely okay. In fact, it's essential for your emotional well-being. Let me tell you, this detox isn't always easy. A few years ago, I found myself in a job I hated, pretending like everything was fine just because I was supposed to be grateful for the opportunity. I kept telling myself, oh, there are people who have it worse. I should be positive and just deal with it. I'd plaster on a smile at work, but inside I was miserable. Eventually, I realized I wasn't doing myself any favors by ignoring my feelings. I had to get honest with myself and say, this is not okay. I need something different. It wasn't about complaining or being negative. It was about acknowledging that I deserved more than just getting through my days. That moment of honesty, though uncomfortable, was the start of real change. I began to ask for what I needed, set boundaries, and took steps to improve my situation, all because I allowed myself to feel the discomfort of where I was and admit it. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. When you detox from toxic positivity, you stop pretending, stop suppressing your emotions, and stop feeling like you have to fix everything with a smile. You give yourself permission to be human. You can feel frustrated, sad, or angry, and still know you are worthy of love and happiness. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong, because you're embracing your real self, not a filtered version of it. So let's stop pretending. Let's stop the cycle of toxic positivity. Feel what you need to feel, because those feelings are valid. And when you allow yourself that space, you'll find that you can heal, grow, and actually move forward without the pressure to be happy all the time. Your space, your peace, and your dignity. No filters, no forced smiles, just real, raw authenticity. And that's what real strength looks like. Number 7. Compliment your enemies. What if I told you that one of the most powerful things you could do for yourself and your peace of mind is complimenting your enemies? Yes, you heard that right. Compliment them. It sounds crazy, right? Maybe even a little passive-aggressive. But trust me on this. It's one of the most surprising strategies for taking back control, diffusing negativity, and making your life so much easier. Now, you might be thinking, why on earth would I give a compliment to someone who's been nothing but difficult, rude, or downright nasty? Here's the thing. This isn't about letting people off the hook or excusing bad behavior. It's about shifting the power dynamic and taking the high road, not for their sake, but for yours. We've all been there, right? You've got that one person who just rubs you the wrong way. Maybe it's a colleague, a friend, or even a family member. They've said something hurtful, or done something to make you feel small. You know the type. They always seem to have a sharp comment ready, or they somehow manage to turn everything into a competition. It's frustrating. It's draining. You want to fire back, to set them straight, to make them feel how they've made you feel. And in the heat of the moment, that urge is totally natural. But here's the thing. Responding with anger or bitterness only feeds into their negativity. It keeps you stuck in their game. So, what if you could take a step back and do the unexpected? What if you could turn the table with a genuine compliment? Here's how it works. When you compliment someone who's made you feel less than, you immediately break the cycle of negativity. It's disarming. It's like you're taking the weapon out of their hands before they even have a chance to use it. And here's the twist. You're not complimenting them to be sarcastic or manipulative. No, this is a real, heartfelt compliment. Maybe it's acknowledging something positive they've done, a skill they have, or even something you genuinely admire about them. I know it sounds a little uncomfortable, right? Like, why would I do that when they don't deserve it? Well, here's the secret. It's not about them. It's about you. Complimenting your enemies takes away their power to make you feel small. It's about showing them, and, most importantly, yourself, that their negativity can't touch your peace. I'll share a story to illustrate this. A few years ago, I was working on a team project with someone who, frankly, wasn't my biggest fan. They'd often challenge my ideas in meetings, sometimes in ways that felt dismissive or rude. I'll admit I was irritated. It was easy to fall into the trap of wanting to argue, to defend myself at every turn. But then, one day, I realized something. I didn't have to fight fire with fire. Instead, I decided to compliment them on their insight during a meeting. I said, "I really like how you approach problems. You always come up with solutions that I wouldn't have thought of." I was genuinely complimenting their ability to think critically, even if I didn't agree with everything they said. And guess what? The entire dynamic shifted. They became less defensive, and I felt like I had taken the high road. It wasn't about approval. It was about maintaining my integrity and my peace. Now, here's the magic. This strategy doesn't just work with difficult people. It works for you emotionally. When you compliment your enemies, you reclaim your space. You stop letting them control your emotions. It's empowering. It frees you from the grip of resentment or frustration that they might have planted in your heart. By offering that compliment, you show yourself that you're not defined by their actions. You get to choose how to respond. And that's power. It's about protecting your peace, even when others are trying to steal it from you. So, the next time someone tries to bring you down, try this. Compliment them. Genuinely, without expectations or ulterior motives. It might feel strange at first, but it's one of the most empowering things you can do. In doing so, you show that you've mastered your own emotions, that you don't need to fight fire with fire. You're above that. You're bigger than the petty conflicts. And remember, your space, your peace, your dignity. Those things are yours to protect, and nothing, not even negativity from others, can take that away from you. Number 8. Create chaos for clarity. What if I told you that the key to finding clarity in your life might actually be creating a bit of chaos? Yes, you heard that right. Chaos. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, right? We've all been trained to think that in order to get clear, everything has to be orderly, neat, and perfectly planned out. But here's the thing. Sometimes the best way to find clarity is by shaking things up a little. I know it sounds a bit radical, but hear me out. You might just discover that embracing a little chaos can be exactly what you need to reset your mind and realign your focus. Think about it. How many times have you tried to get everything in perfect order before you could tackle something important? You know the type, when you're trying to plan out your next big move And instead of diving in, you start tidying up, organizing, or stressing over every little detail. We've all been there, haven't we? Spinning in circles, thinking that if we just get everything in the right place, the clarity will come. But the truth is, that doesn't work. All it does is create more pressure, more noise, and more stress. The clarity you're after isn't hiding behind your neatly arranged schedule or your perfectly written to-do list. It's somewhere else entirely. So, what if, instead of trying to force clarity through order, you leaned into the chaos for a moment? What if you allowed yourself to be messy, imperfect, and a little all over the place? Sounds like a nightmare to some of us who like control, right? But here's the twist. By letting yourself embrace the chaos, whether it's a busy day, a challenging project, or even an emotional moment, you give yourself the space to truly process. When everything is chaotic, you're forced to get real with yourself. You can't hide behind perfection. You can't push aside the things you need to confront. Instead, you face them head-on, and in that messy confrontation, clarity often emerges. I'll tell you a story from my own life. A few years ago, I was stuck in a work project, the type where everything felt like it was slipping through my fingers. My mind was scattered, my energy was low, and every plan I made just felt like one more thing to juggle. I was trying to keep everything neat and tidy, emails, schedules, deadlines, and it wasn't working. One evening, overwhelmed by all the order I had been trying to create, I decided to just let go for a bit. I grabbed a notebook, scribbled down everything that was swirling in my head, and let myself vent. I didn't try to organize it or make it pretty. I just let the chaos pour out. And do you know what happened? In the mess of words, a pattern emerged. I started to see the bigger picture. I could finally identify what really mattered and what was just noise. That chaotic session of brain dumping gave me more clarity than a perfectly planned day ever could. This is what I'm talking about. Sometimes you've got to break things apart to see how they fit together. You've got to stir the pot a little before you can find the recipe. Creating chaos for clarity is about letting yourself break free from the expectations you've placed on yourself. It's about giving yourself permission to let go of the need for everything to be perfect, and instead trusting that in the mess, you will find what you need. This is where growth happens. It's in the raw, unrefined moments that we learn about ourselves, our priorities, and the things we truly care about. And the beauty of this? It doesn't just help you mentally, it frees you emotionally. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your power. Because when you give yourself permission to be messy, you stop overthinking, over-explaining, or over-justifying. You stop waiting for everything to be perfectly in place before you move forward. Instead, you trust yourself enough to dive into the unknown. And that's where real breakthroughs happen. Clarity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from courage. It comes from the willingness to get a little messy so you can find your way to what truly matters. So next time you feel like you're drowning in the need for perfect order or a neat little plan, remember this. Sometimes chaos is the way to clarity. Embrace it. Let it shake things up. Because in the mess, you might just find the clarity you've been searching for all along. And remember, your space, your peace, your dignity, they all get stronger when you trust yourself enough to embrace the chaos. Number 9. Reverse engineering your fear. What if I told you that the secret to overcoming your fear isn't about just pushing through it, but about completely flipping it on its head? Yes, I know this sounds a little like the last thing you'd expect someone to say when you're struggling with fear. But trust me, there's a way to reverse engineer it, and it can change everything. I'm talking about a method that doesn't just deal with the fear, but actually breaks it down so you can take control. Now, you might be thinking, What does it mean to reverse engineer fear? I get it. It sounds like a weird concept, but stick with me. We've all had those moments. You know the type. You've got something important coming up, a big presentation, a tough conversation, or maybe even something simple like trying a new hobby, and suddenly you feel paralyzed by fear. Your mind starts running through worst-case scenarios, your heart races, and you're pretty sure you're about to crumble under the pressure. We've all been there, right? The more you try to push the fear aside, the stronger it seems to get, doesn't it? It's like fear is holding you hostage, and the more you struggle, the tighter its grip gets. That's because most of the time we try to ignore it, avoid it, or pretend it doesn't exist, and guess what? That only makes it stronger. Here's where the trick comes in: reverse engineering. Instead of trying to push your fear away, what if you took a moment to break it down and figure out where it's really coming from? What if, instead of pretending it's not there, you started asking yourself questions like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Or, why am I so afraid of this? It's almost like taking your fear apart and studying each piece. This isn't about facing your fear in the traditional sense. It's about getting curious about it. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but by looking your fear square in the face and understanding what's behind it, you can actually shrink its power over you. When you reverse engineer your fear, you uncover what's really at the root of it. Often, it's not as big and scary as it first seems. I'll tell you from experience, I've had my fair share of fears that held me back from doing things. A while ago, I was terrified of speaking in front of a group. The anxiety would hit me as soon as I stepped up to the stage. My hands would sweat, my mind would go blank, and I'd start imagining everything going wrong. One day, I decided to reverse engineer it. Instead of focusing on the fear of speaking, I asked myself, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Honestly, the worst was that I'd mess up, feel embarrassed and move on. And guess what? That was really not as bad as I had made it out to be. Once I broke down the fear and understood it wasn't life or death, I was able to take control and shift my focus onto doing the best I could, rather than being consumed by what could go wrong. Once I got curious about my fear, it lost its grip. Now imagine doing that with all the things you're afraid of, big or small. Reverse engineering. Your fear doesn't just help you get rid of it, it helps you understand it, so it loses its power over you. It gives you a sense of control and a path forward, no longer running away from what you fear, but walking right through it with clarity. This is about reclaiming your peace and taking back your confidence. No more backing down, no more over-explaining, no more letting fear call the shots. It's about recognizing that fear doesn't have to be a roadblock. It can be a signpost guiding you toward growth. So, next time you feel fear creeping in, don't try to shove it away or get overwhelmed by it. Instead, reverse engineer it. Take it apart, question it, and figure out what's really going on. In doing so, you'll uncover the real power you have to rise above it. And remember, when you reverse engineer your fear, you take back your space, your peace, and your dignity. That's real strength, understanding your fears and using them as fuel for your growth. Number 10. Publicly fail to succeed. What if I told you the secret to success isn't avoiding failure, but actually embracing it, out loud for everyone to see? I know, that sounds crazy, right? The whole idea of publicly failing feels like the opposite of success, doesn't it? But trust me on this, failing in front of others can be one of the most powerful things you can do to actually succeed. Now, before you roll your eyes and think I've lost my mind, just hear me out. We've all been there. The fear of failure lurking in the back of our minds, holding us back from doing something new or challenging. You know the type. You've got that big idea, that amazing project, or that next step in your career that excites you, But then you hesitate. What if it doesn't work? What if people laugh at you? What if you embarrass yourself? These are real fears that almost all of us face, and we've all been conditioned to think that the best way to avoid them is to hide our failures, to protect our image, and to keep our mistakes under wraps. After all, who wants to be the person who publicly fails? But here's the twist. The people who succeed aren't the ones who hide their failures. They're the ones who wear them proudly. It's not about failing and hoping no one notices. It's about showing up, making mistakes, and being open about those mistakes. Why? Because when you do that, you give yourself permission to grow, and you inspire others to do the same. And here's the real kicker. The more you openly fail, the more you learn. It's that very failure that will teach you what works, what doesn't, and where you need to improve. The key to succeeding is not hiding your failures, it's using them as stepping stones. I can tell you from personal experience that failing publicly has been one of the most freeing things I've done. A few years ago, I was working on a project that was all about public speaking. I had this brilliant idea to lead a workshop, but I wasn't sure if people would show up or if I'd even do a good job. I was nervous, and part of me wanted to cancel it or hold off until I was ready. But instead, I took the plunge and did it anyway. I got up there, started my presentation, and it bombed. People weren't engaged, I lost track of my points, and it felt like a train wreck. But instead of running away and pretending it didn't happen, I took a moment to acknowledge it. I said, "Well, that was a mess. Let's try again." And you know what? People appreciated my honesty. They saw that I was human, that I wasn't afraid to fail, and in that moment I gained more respect than if I'd nailed it perfectly the first time. This isn't just about me, though. It's about how embracing your failures publicly can shift your entire mindset. When you fail publicly, you stop fearing judgment. You reclaim your power and your confidence, knowing that your worth isn't defined by one failed attempt. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Failing in front of others isn't shameful. It's proof that you're doing something that matters. It's about growth, learning, and showing up time and time again, regardless of how things turn out. And when you let others see that, you become a role model. You become someone who shows them that it's okay to fail, to be imperfect, to try again. So, the next time you're about to take a leap, whether it's starting a new venture, trying a new skill, or simply putting yourself out there, remember that public failure is a badge of honor. It means you're trying. It means you're living. And most importantly, it means you're on the path to something bigger and better. Don't hide your failures. Let them shine. Fail in front of others, learn from it, and keep moving forward with strength. Because that's how you succeed. Your space, your peace, and your dignity. Thank you so much for watching. I truly hope these quotes helped you shift your perspective and gave you some new tools to stay positive, even when things get tough. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an empowering video. Feel free to share this with anyone who could use a little boost of positivity today. Let's spread the good vibes. I'd love to hear your thoughts and personal experiences, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, no matter what life throws at you, staying positive isn't about ignoring the tough times. It's about finding strength in them. Keep pushing forward, and I'll see you in the next